Well, welcome to the April 22nd meeting of the planning board. We have on Zoom Michelle, who is our town board liaison, and we're honored to have the town supervisor here with us as well, at least for a little while, Mark Whitmer. And the members present are me, Adam, and Brad, and we don't, I believe, have Will on Zoom, so we'll see if she shows up. So I'm going to assume that, first I want to formally welcome Brad to the planning board. This is your first meeting, so feel free to jump in at any point. First item on our, and Bill, I think you all saw that Bill had a conflict tonight, so he's not here, so he asked me to chair, so that's why I'm doing this. This first item on the agenda is privilege of the floor, which it doesn't look like we have anybody to do it, so we won't do any. Approving the minutes from the March 18th meeting, Bill sent these out a while ago. I did not see any changes come on email. Did anybody else have any concerns? Hearing none, we'll take those as approved. Michelle, the town board report.
Well, I don't really have anything to report. I don't think we've discussed any planning board issues since the last time I was there. Would you agree with that, Mark? Sure.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So.
Okay, well, that's nice and sweet and short. Thank you. So we're going to continue work on the mobile home park law. And just to refresh everyone's memory, we have been talking about a number of things regarding the mobile home park law and whether the content in the old law is already now, with the new zoning law, relatively new zoning law, covered adequately with now new existing town law, or if the mobile home park law needs to be revised, or if it should be rescinded. And if it's rescinded, if there's any parts of it or issues, topics that are related to mobile home park law that should be added to another existing town law, like the zoning law or I guess subdivision review law. So those are the issues. And last time we left it as there were a number of issues that were outstanding. The first one was whether given the outstanding issues, Bill talked with Robert Ria, the code officer for the town, and Bill sent today a summary of his conversation with Robert. Did you see that in email? And did you see that in email? Okay. Michelle, did you receive that? Oh, Michelle may not be here anymore.
I think she is.
Oh, okay.
Are you there, Michelle?
Got a camera on.
Okay. Oh, I guess I do see her.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So Bill also sent me some notes about each of the issues that I can share with you when we get to them that were different from what he sent after his conversation with the code officer. So the first issue was whether we should require an operating permit. So an operating permit is required in a couple of sections of the existing old mobile home park law. And so the question is, should we keep it in a watered down, smaller version, a shortened version of a mobile home park law, not require it at all, or amend the zoning law and require it of only the mobile home park or of all multifamily housing? And so Bill's take on it was that the code officer, in the responses from the code officer, building permit is required. And also the town has a manufactured home installation permit application that applies to all manufactured homes, not just mobile home parks. So any manufactured home needs the installation permit application.
So that's the New York State Building Code. right? That would be, it's,
well, it's a town permit application.
yeah,
So whether the town is requiring it or New York State is requiring it, I don't know.
okay. I think it's probably just like for regular residential building permits, the town has a permit form, so this must be one that's specialized for manufactured home.
And the town's building permit is required by the state or required
I think
by the
it's by the
town?
state, I think
Okay.
it's to comply with the state regulations.
Okay, so that's probably what this is. So it's a, yeah, manufactured home installation permit for any. The operating permit would be different from, you know, an individual mobile home unit. It would be an operating permit for, you know, for the facility, for the commercial mobile home park. So Bill's suggestion is that he favors, favors keeping the idea of an operating permit for a park, for a commercial park, and adding it to the multifamily section of the zoning law to apply to anything above 4 units. So larger than 4 units, 4 mobile home units in size. And he said he would favor recommending that to the town board, but would want to get the lawyer Guy Crow's take on how helpful something like that actually is. And so I think the idea is just to make sure that with an operating permit, the whole thing is functioning, not just each individual mobile unit, which requires the town installation permit. So thoughts on that? Any opinion about an operating permit?
I would agree that we either have one and do it for everybody, or don't have one and don't do it for anybody.
I guess what's the issues of, you know, what's the purpose of, I mean, I know you're saying to have it operate as a whole, but is there something where we need to be on the lookout for that we're trying to prevent by, you know, requiring it?
I think the idea would be, and this is where I'm not sure about the value of having it for all multifamily housing. Requiring an operating permit for a mobile home park at least gives you some oversight of whether all of the things are functioning, you know, because each unit needs its own sewer connections, it needs its own water connections, it needs its own electrical connections, which the multifamily housing development, you know, it's the apartment that you have all that stuff with.
Right, but if you're with your building permit or, you know, for the mobile home, you would then have to require, I guess, that it has the electrical and the water hookup, right? So it's not really dependent on the other mobile homes in the park. So
That's true.
So you know, again, it's like, well, what are we trying to prevent, you know?
What does the operating permit do?
Yeah, what does it do?
Yeah, what does
I
it-
mean,
what does it
I mean, what are we
require?
trying to regulate here? If the building permit for each individual one already covers that site where you're putting the mobile home covers what's required by
Yeah.
code.
I know part of it was because a lot of mobile home parks tend to get bought by a developer or someone out of town, and they tend not to care anymore. And so I think part of the operating permit was to make sure that things were kept up on the property around, not just individual trailers, because individual mobile homes are going to be owned mostly probably by the people.
Right, so the common area.
Yeah, to make sure it's, I mean,
Can I ask
that should be the same for a multifamily, in my opinion, for sure.
Michelle.
Go ahead, Michelle.
Well, have you actually seen what the operating permit requires?
No, and that's why I'm looking now in the existing mobile home law to see if it says anything about what it requires. So it talks about the permit needing to be, in this case, in the case of the existing law, needs to be renewed annually. And it says the renewal application need not be accompanied by a plan of the park unless changes have been made to it. So that kind of, speaks to the, common areas and the design and things that are happening, the layout of it. Let's see.
I mean, it just might be helpful to see what they're actually requiring, to see
They would-
whether,
They'd require the lease, so the lease would be required. Again, I'm just trying to look and see, there's a fee associated with it.
I mean, could Bob Ray give us a copy of it to?
I don't know who, Mark, would it be Bob who would have these on file? Was he the one that would
Yeah.
handle this?
Yeah,
Okay.
I can go over and take a peek now.
Let me see, it's in two sections of the existing law, section 4 and section 8, so let me just look at.
Responsibilities of park operator as under,
Yeah, so it
maintenance.
says, the person or corporation for whom a permit is issued shall operate the park in compliance with this law and shall provide adequate supervision to maintain the park, its grounds, facilities, and equipment in good repair and in a clean and sanitary condition.
And then so is it
that
the-
implies that the operating permit would cover those things, but we don't know that, I suppose, until we look at what's in a.
And then the other second question follow-up to that would just be, is the operating permit then something you renew every year, like an annual thing? So that you can have some sort of making sure that they're,
Or an inspection.
yeah,
Right, and that's what the existing law does or did, required every year, and we had talked about at a previous meeting, if we had an operating permit, whether every year is overkill, or if we would want to do it less frequently than that. So what we're saying is, we should take a look at what is actually on the operating permit renewal application. Is that what we're
yeah,
getting at?
it's on the permit.
We have some mobile home parks, so I should be able to find in the files.
Okay,
Some permits, so.
okay,
What the,
all right. Yeah, I'm just taking some notes. Any opinion on? Well, maybe not until we see the permit, on whether we would want to also include multifamily housing, not just mobile home park laws, as requiring this if we do suggest amending the zoning law. Again, yeah,
So the only big difference between a mobile home park and a multifamily is that mobile home park, usually like I said, the homes are owned by an individual, and the park and the lots are owned by the park, right? Where they usually have a lot rent and they pay for the utilities, but they don't,
right,
they own their trailer, they own their mobile home.
right, okay,
Multifamily housing probably would be different.
yeah, like Boysville, certainly not. that
Right,
way,
right.
Yeah,
Unless it's like a condo, but we don't have anything like that here.
I think I agree with you, though. I would say, if you're gonna apply it to the mobile home, apply it to everybody, why not? I mean, if the whole point is to say that the whole building, the whole facility and grounds are up to snuff and maintenance, why not? And then it would seem to be not discriminatory then.
So what happens if someone's personal mobile home is awful, but the park is really nice? Can it be enforced?
well, that might get at what's required of the lease that the
The
owner
lot.
of the park has with that
Yeah.
unit, and that gives them some.
Leverage.
More of a civil thing
leverage,
rather than
yeah.
a town involvement.
Right,
Right.
right, okay. And what's that?
yeah, I'm looking at the law.
Oh,
So here it's
okay.
talking about a requirement for open space. You guys have probably already seen this, right? So,
Yeah,
Which-
I think
Which
that,
law?
The
The
mobile home-
existing mobile home.
Existing
Yeah.
mobile home.
So one of the things that we had talked about was that the rules that apply to conservation subdivision would apply to this. So the idea of open space
Yeah,
would be required, whether recreation space, developed recreation space
uh-huh.
would be required as our next issue here on our list. So what was your about?
I'm seeing that, and it here has a requirement for one tree planted for every mobile home, so that would be an operating permit thing, I would think, that.
a lot of that's covered under the current zoning law, that's,
Right, so just
Yeah.
for background in this, we had already agreed that we should do away with all those specifics.
Okay, I'm just,
Like the specific requirement that says one tree, or the specific requirement that says, 10 feet here, 20 feet there, or whatever. Because the zoning law now has a lot of
has a lot of that, yeah.
specification, yes. In
I'm
the
just,
design
yeah,
standards.
so, then I'm looking at the next section here on maintenance. Responsibilities of the park operator,
Right,
so that's where I would think.
right,
operating.
that's what we were just
Okay.
talking about,
Good,
yeah.
I'm catching
under-
up.
In section 8,
Yeah, okay,
okay. All right, and so we'll take a look at the operating permit, see what information exists. We're heading in the direction of, if we do decide that it will apply to the mobile home park, that it would apply to all multifamily housing. And then the third kind of key issue is whether it would be annual renewal or less frequent, and that may depend on what information is in the operating permit, right?
and if it doesn't specify, then I would suggest a longer than 1 year. Just because I feel like maybe biannually or every 4 or 5, and probably 5 is too long, but
Yeah, maybe every other year.
it just seems like every year would be kind of a taxing thing on the.
On everybody,
Yeah.
everybody involved, yeah.
I mean, we don't have very many of them.
Right,
If we do put it to all multifamily, it would add a few more.
okay, so perhaps every 2 years.
I was noticing recently, checking on, stormwater maintenance, permits, and so the way the property owner has a responsibility every year to make sure that the stormwater facilities are working properly, and then every 5 years, they have to have an engineer do an assessment and then file a report with the town, so.
And this is for what kind of development?
It's for,
Stormwater.
like, if Boydsville Cottages has,
So like a multifamily housing development of any type?
Or anyone who has to deal with stormwater.
yeah, it's if you put in any kind of it's more related to what you're doing with stormwater than the use. So if you put in something that's managing stormwater, sewer, and septic, then that's the way it works.
Does that
So-
work for all, what they call non-porous or?
Yeah, so like when I built my building, I had to put it in a parking lot, I had to fall into the stormwater. Cause you're disturbing so much acreage of surface area,
And making it not permeable.
permeable, right, and then, so then, yeah, I had to have special stormwater permit and plan and engineering.
And so you have to get that renewed every few years?
Yeah, yes, I think it was just like Mark said, I was thinking it was like, we're supposed to inspect it annually,
Okay.
or actually Town of Dryden, I think is supposed to inspect it annually. They frequently don't, just because of manpower and everybody gets busy with life.
Right,
And then my engineer is supposed to give the blessing and say, yes, everything's fine. And he has done that at least once or twice, but I haven't been there that long.
So is that normally on the town to ask, or is it on the property owner to do it preemptively?
That's a good question. I'm not entirely sure. I should know.
I did read our agreement the other day, and the property owner is supposed to supply it to the town. But I think it would also be incumbent on the town to
Follow up.
to follow up if Ours is actually due for Boysenville Cottages this year, because I was just curious, you know, it'd been brought to my attention that we have this agreement. I was like, oh my God, what am I supposed to do? So,
And
so it's
frequently-
not overdue.
Yeah,
And
frequently the
so-
owners don't realize it.
Yeah,
Like,
but-
I don't realize it.
I don't realize it.
And then,
Yeah.
you
I
know,
don't know if I'm supposed to do it.
yeah, and so usually I have a good relationship with Dave Sprout over at Conrad, and he just calls me up, he's like, Brad, remind me to do this, I'm like, okay, I'll remind you. But yeah, it's one of those things of like,
So is that something we should be asking somebody in the town to?
That would be code officer would be, so like, I would say,
yeah, so it'd be Bob.
you know, like, for that example,
Yeah,
by later in the year, then I would say, well, we haven't heard anything, we need to contact the owner and say, you know, are you aware of this, or how's it going, whatever.
so this is not the mobile home park law issue, but just in general,
Yeah.
is that on the code officer's agenda?
Oh, I
To
see.
periodically look at all of the stormwater, things
Yes,
that
he is the
Is
stormwater
it-
officer.
Is it also for commercial properties, like the storage units?
For which one?
The storage units that I have.
Yeah.
We wanna know if
it
that
would be
affects-
Bob.
I don't think I've ever done that. I mean,
Yeah, it would be Bob Rand. So do you have a stormwater agreement for that?
I've known, my grandfather did it.
Okay. So we can look in the files or whatever, yeah.
I mean, I'm sure he did, I hope.
but I guess.
And you may not have
Well,
to actually do anything, a lot of times it's just they come, they look and say, yes, it's still adequately draining stormwater.
Yeah,
But like in my case, they actually dug specific ponds.
Oh, yeah.
And so
Yeah.
then they have to
Retention.
actually come and take an excavator and dig them back out if they fill in with sediment.
Got it.
So, but if you're on, like yours probably,
I mean, they just go into a ditch and go into the stream, so.
right, so as long as they're functioning adequately, and then, you know, it's probably is the real issue.
Okay, well, now that Mark knows to address the stormwater issue, we will move on to the second topic, which is the question about whether to, Will hasn't joined us, has she?
no, still just have two of us.
Okay, whether to require recreation or other common areas. So this was in section 7.7 of the existing law. That said, in all home parks, there shall be provided one or more developed recreation areas which are easily accessible to all park occupants. The size of such recreation areas shall be based on a minimum of 8% of the gross acreage of the park. It should be of sufficient size so it could be used for active recreation purposes, shall be stabilized by grass or other form of ground cover which will prevent dusty or muddy areas. And then it says, if community space and facilities like meeting rooms, recreation buildings, etc., laundry rooms are to be included as part of the park, the application for a permit shall include the applicant's statement of intent to provide adequate supervision and management of such space and facilities, but it's not requiring such space. So the question is whether to require recreation or other common areas. Given that we have already said that a mobile home park needs to follow the conservation subdivision rules that require a certain amount of open space, not necessarily recreation space, but open space in the zoning law. What's the feelings about requiring recreation or other common areas? Anybody feel strongly about that? One way or the
I would
other?
say whatever, on that one, same as the other one, that if we're gonna do it to that, we need to do it to everything, and can an open space be recreation space too?
Well, in the conservation subdivision, it talks a lot about, you know, putting trails
Yeah,
in the open spaces and things. So a type of recreation, yes.
Yeah, I don't know if it would be good to micromanage what type of recreation, but I think as long as some sort of open space, and maybe making the suggestion
Right.
of that it's recreation space, not just open space, like there's a tree. Does that make sense?
Not in terms of the zoning law requiring the conservation subdivision open space. I mean,
Okay.
there's a purpose for that to be green space that's not developed, you know, so you wouldn't want to say build an asphalt playground
Gotcha.
there,
Yeah.
you know.
But
I think the open space should
does the zoning law with the open space requirement somehow prevent someone from, say, putting a playground there?
I don't believe a playground could be counted as the open space. Do you remember?
I'm not sure. I would have to scratch my head. I'd have to look at that.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, because if we're thinking that we're using that open
Doesn't seem like
space,
the definition would even work, because, open space to me would mean nothing
nothing
there.
there, okay, I'm just, you know, if we're thinking that open space is the rec space,
Yeah.
but
The-
what if they make the rec space a playground and then that doesn't qualify as open space?
I have a comment.
Yeah, go ahead.
My recollection, Barb, about the zoning was the open space could even be being used as farming, like they could be growing things on it. It doesn't have-
Yes, I think that's right, yes.
So it's not just like this big green lawn, it can be. It's
Oh,
just,
no, yeah, well, I mean, it wasn't meant to be a lawn, it was meant to be more like a, yeah,
Space.
a natural area or.
But it could be
Yeah.
used, it could be used for farming, which would mean that it wouldn't be appropriate for a playground.
Right, okay.
I would just think it'd probably be nothing permanent on it other than vegetation.
Yes.
Right, I think that was the idea. Let me see if I can find that in here.
I mean, I can look at, I have a hard copy of it someplace, but
Then it comes back to, do we want to require separate language for multifamily homes to say recreation space specifically beyond just open space?
Why would we do that to them and not a multifamily development?
Oh, I don't,
I know,
I agree
I'm
100%.
I'm just putting it out
Yeah,
there.
I agree 100%. I think, of course, my personal feeling is like, you know, all of them should have some sort of recreation space. I mean, where are the kids gonna go? Of course, I now think of that because I have a daughter, so I was thinking like, where's she gonna run in the streets?
Well, I mean, an open space
Okay,
would still
so.
be a fun area to my kids.
So open space, let's see, so it's preserved as a non-buildable part of the area. Active agricultural land with farm buildings may be used to meet the minimum required open space land. But let's see. Open space lands shall be laid out in such a manner that preserves ecological systems. So basically it's in the conservation subdivision language, it is open area that is supposed to be either agricultural or undeveloped. And it says recreation lands such as dog parks, ball fields, golf courses, and parks shall not be considered part of the required open space unless such land is open to the public.
Oh. Unless such land is open to the public.
Right. Yes. Such recreational lands with access only to residents shall not be counted towards the open space requirements, but shall be counted towards any recreation land requirement that may be required by the town of Caroline. But at this point, we don't require anything like that for multifamily housing.
Where are you reading?
That was in the zoning law and the conservation subdivision section.
Okay.
Yeah. So, so what Bill said on this, his opinion, less clear whether recreation or common areas should be required, perhaps add to the multifamily section of the zoning law for developments above a certain size. He says randomly, maybe 12 units. So I
Makes
get,
sense in a way. The more units you have, the more families potentially you have there with less things for them to do.
Yeah,
right,
If you have
Right.
a mobile home park of 3 units, 4 units,
right.
doesn't
Open
seem.
space is fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you have 12, 15, 20, could potentially be a lot of children running around with nothing to do.
so what if we were to require, for a certain, number to be determined, but require, recreation area or facilities, I'm just thinking of some wording here, recreation area for facility or facilities pertinent or relevant to the clientele of the housing unit.
Yeah.
Because, well, like, what if it's what if it's a senior, a
They're not
senior,
gonna have playgrounds.
yeah.
So new playgrounds, shuffleboard.
yeah, exactly, pickleball court,
But that would be considered a recreation area. So
yeah,
it's just a recreation area appropriate for
Mm-hmm.
the type of housing.
Right.
okay. And opinions about the number of housing units that would prompt this. So Bill tossed out 12 as just tossing it out. Thoughts?
How large are the ones we have now in Carolina?
The mobile home parks that I don't know.
I mean, the one down this way is
Yeah.
probably the largest, right? Right on the border.
Yeah, how many do you think that is, like 15?
Actually just looked at it today. Actually have it up here on maps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Well,
Maybe that's why you picked it.
yeah, maybe. I mean, so what would it be if it was less than that?
So
It
then
would
there would
require-
be no requirement for a specific recreation
For
area.
the
or
recreation
facility.
areas and
Yeah.
stuff. I see.
Yeah,
I like 10. That's a nice round number.
10 seems like a nice round number, yes.
10 makes a community.
Yeah.
Shall we give any
It's all
thoughts?
arbitrary numbers.
No, this is, and just the residents would be able to use this recreation.
Well, unless the owner wanted to make it, but no, the requirement would be that it has to be available to the residents, yeah.
Yeah, I don't, 10 seems fine. How many, I noticed there's one playground at the Boiseville cottages, right? There's like a couple of dog parks, but there's one playground as far as I know.
Yeah, I don't know if there's just one.
Just throwing it out there, but
Oh, yes, I have seen that. Yeah, it's over kind of near the road.
yeah.
And how many units are there, Michelle? There's like, what,
I mean, that's for all of Boyceville, as far as I know, Boyceville, as far as I know, so.
135 units, okay.
That's
135, wow.
Yeah,
And I mean, it's not required though, I mean, he just did that, which was nice of him.
So then,
Right.
would we wanna think about saying like, then any complex over a certain needs more than one like over 100, like 10 to 100 is one's fine. And then over 100, you need maybe a secondary
that's a
one.
good point.
Or
Large.
maybe, or just a larger size rec area. Right?
yeah, percentage of. Well, isn't an open space a percentage of the land?
For conservation subdivision? Yeah,
Yes,
50, right?
I don't remember what
I think
the
it's 50.
percentage is.
If we can piggyback on that with this and say however percentage,
Yeah.
I don't know how. Because a
Hmm.
playground doesn't have to be a certain size to be fun.
Yeah,
I mean, I think with the playground thing, you could be inviting a lot of gnarly issues there, like who's gonna maintain it? What kind of quality what kind of materials will be used for the playground? I mean, it used to be that there were all these wooden playgrounds, that with
Right.
pressure wood, they had to get rid of those because they contain arsenic, and now they have metal and plastic or whatever. I'm just wondering, like, who's gonna maintain those standards?
well, that would go on the operating permit, wouldn't it?
Right, just like
So, Bob Ray. You dig 'em?
I think- We're gonna need a couple of Bob. I'm just saying, I just think you're introducing I'm not saying they're insurmountable, I'm just
Yeah,
pointing it out. There's a lot of issues with playgrounds. I'm saying this because I spent a lot of time at playgrounds this past weekend.
yes, I can appreciate that. Yeah, but I mean, this is not recommending playgrounds per se. This is recommending recreation areas, that are relevant to whoever lives there. And presumably that is something that would be examined in an operating permit that's looked at every couple of years.
Right.
Right?
Mhm.
Okay.
Right, is there facilities dilapidated, whether the facilities are rec facilities or other facilities?
Which would also incentivize the developer to probably put in the most maintenance-free things to put in, like a ball field, like
Right,
ball diamond,
Yeah. that'd be
put in
nice.
some sand every couple of years.
probably.
I mean, even for little kids, that's fine, you know, if they want a place to run, right? Well, kids don't
Right.
always see the playground, so.
Yeah,
Right.
I don't think we need to necessarily specify what rec area, but
Right.
just a rec area, since the open space law precludes having
Having
rec,
developed, yeah,
having it developed as
having developed.
recreation.
Yeah. Okay, so we're comfortable with requiring for 10 units, and do we want to get into like, two separate areas? If there's more than 100 units or more than some number of units?
Yeah, I think just maybe a percentage space rather than
Yeah, I
number of
think,
spaces.
I think percent of space, and they can choose to,
Be
put
one
in-
big or two
yeah.
or.
So what
whatever.
percentage space? So remember,
Well,
50%
It said.
of their land area is already set aside to
Open
open
space.
space, undeveloped area or ag land.
So the current one says what, 8%, right? Rec area.
Size of such recreation area shall be based on a minimum of 8% of the gross acreage of the park.
Right. So,
So
I mean, do we just wanna leave it at that?
I mean, and the open space is 15, you said?
50
50.
50?
for conservation.
So that
subdivision.
means
50.
42% would be available for the home,
Right,
which is,
Yeah, I don't know, maybe 5%.
yeah, that seems,
yeah,
it seems like we're really impinging on their
Yes.
ability to use the land.
Right,
mm,
5%?
yeah,
And would it be 5% of gross acreage or 5% of the non-conservation open space area?
I'd say take out the second part you said here,
So 5%
After.
of the living spaces,
5% of the, what'd you say,
the
living spaces?
living spaces, so if there's
5% or
Oh.
50%.
5% of the 50%, right? So
Yes.
what,
it'd be a smaller chunk.
so what's 5%, 50%? That's 2.5%
2.5%
of the
total.
gross,
Yeah,
so it's
Okay.
2.5% of the gross.
Okay.
It's 5% of 50%.
all right. Okay, so our third issue is whether or not to include specific landscaping requirements. So currently, section 7.8 of the the existing mobile home park law has a lot of details about what the landscape, like the one tree.
Yeah.
And our discussion last time was whether or not that's needed, you know, really questioning whether that's needed, given what's in the zoning law regarding the multifamily and conservation subdivision sections. And I think when we had talked about this earlier, we were tending towards not trying to avoid being too prescriptive. Where I am here. You know, not getting down to the, you know, you must have a bush here, or you must have a tree here, you know, whatever. And so, let's see, so Bill's comment that he sent was, we should rationalize our development so that manufactured home parks are not treated differently from other multifamily developments. Just kind of the theme that we've been guiding our discussions with. What's in the multifamily and conservation design sections of the zoning law on landscaping is less specific, much more flexible than what's in the old mobile home park law. he suggests just letting the zoning law cover it, as is, and not suggesting any landscaping tweaking that would apply only to mobile home parks. And I'm kind of that opinion as well.
I agree.
Is that agreed? Okay. Okay, then we have, a bunch of details about, skirting and various other things, so, but one note was that the existing law prohibits a mobile home park from being located in a 100-year floodplain. And Bill was going to track down the rationale and determine if that's all already in the building or fire code. And I'm not remembering from Robert Ria's answers if he had addressed that one.
Well, what was he trying to find out?
The current mobile home park law prohibits a mobile home from being located in a 100-year floodplain.
Okay,
And so if that is not in the building or fire code, the question then becomes, do we want to add that, suggest adding that to the zoning law specifically for mobile home parks?
Mhm.
And I'm not seeing anything that says that Robert addressed that question. So that might still be an open issue.
It's a good question, I mean,
And
sometimes,
right now, because they revised all the FEMA flood maps, so we're gonna adopt a new revised flood damage prevention law. But that law does not prohibit building a 100-year floodplain. It just says if you do, here's what you have to do.
right,
So, the guy was very clear that that's what that law does. So, prohibiting, mobile home parks in a 100-year floodplain would be, a different.
Yeah.
Thing.
but do we already prohibit multifamily development in a 100-year floodplain?
I don't think so, because the zoning law would only talk about the like the
Stream
setbacks, the
corridor.
stream corridor, yeah,
Right, which
right,
the 100-year floodplain can go beyond
Could
that
go beyond
quite a
that.
bit.
yeah. So I'm not
So it would be
aware,
so the difference would be, say, a typical structure would have more of a better foundation.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think that would be the difference.
And I think you have to
Yeah.
have it above base flood elevation. You have to, however you would do it.
Mobile homes are usually just slab on,
Yeah.
slab
Yeah,
and things, so. It definitely would cause some issues if we had a big flood and they were in there.
But it would be useful to look at the actual 100-year flood designations. Just to think about what it would mean.
Do we have a lot of them already in this town?
I mean, you can imagine where they are
Yeah.
along 6 Mile Creek, but
Yeah.
they're. My memory is they're not extensive, they're not everywhere, it's pretty restricted.
so what if I say on this one that we need to delay this to another meeting when we can actually look at a map of the 100-year floodplain and have more clarity about whether this is already covered in a building fire code? Does that make sense? Okay. We'll put that one on hold for next time. Okay, the next issue is whether we want to specify a specific road width. So the current mobile home park law talks about requiring streets to be sufficient width to facilitate the turning movements of vehicles with mobile or modular homes attached. And in the site plan section of the zoning law and the design standards piece of it, there are things about, roads and road widths and things, but not to the specificity of making sure somebody can turn around with a mobile home attached to a trailer. So a suggestion would be to recommend that be added to, let's see, I think Bill was suggesting either the multifamily section of the zoning law or the site plan section of the zoning law. Just have a reminder in there that for a mobile home park, that the turning radius needs to be accommodated in any road or,
So that would be the
parking.
turning radius for any spot on the road?
No, that there's at least some place where they can
Okay.
turn around, yeah, not that the entire road would have to
That would be
accommodate
Take
that,
up
but
acres.
yes. Yes, right, but that they're, a place to turn around would be accommodated.
Okay,
I don't think I wanna say they're not dropped by cranes, are they? I think they're just, because they're on wheels, so they just
yeah,
backed in,
Right.
placed it there, and then.
I think
They
that
just-
is true,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, my home came on a crane.
You're what?
My home came on a crane.
Modular.
Yeah,
Okay,
big truck cut up that hill. I still can't believe it.
so are we in agreement that we should suggest some clarifying language in the zoning law
Yeah.
to accommodate that? Okay. Next issue is skirting requirement. And as we talked about before, there's benefits of skirting for energy conservation and protecting cars from freezing and things. With skirting, let's see, from Robert Ria, Bill had asked, is skirting required for a manufactured home in Caroline? The response was, Robert did not know of a local requirement, suspects there is a state level one. Manufacturers' instructions are usually the standard for things like this. Local laws can be more restrictive as long as they do not conflict with the manufacturer's instructions. Again, just as a reminder, this would apply not to every mobile home unit, but just to those units that are in parks. Bill's suggestion was to recommend adding language to the multifamily housing section that says a manufactured home used as part of a multifamily development shall have skirting installed in accordance with manufacturer specifications for skirting. Does
Sounds good
that
to me.
seem reasonable?
Yep.
Okay.
And that leads it to where if it's a single mobile home, then they don't. Just a person, just a single mobile home on a house.
It would not be required by the zoning law. If the manufacturer requires it for it to be a safe installation or whatever, then yeah. Then that would be a code issue. Okay, there was an issue about connections and fuel storage. And let's see, Robert was asked about this, and he said basically that it would be a redundant requirement that standards, for example, how fuel systems are installed are specified elsewhere, and such installations are inspected as part of the construction process. So I think the suggestion there is to not do anything. I mean, if we're aiming if we're heading towards rescinding, suggesting that the mobile home park law be rescinded, that we don't build in anything like that to the zoning law, because it's already covered by manufacturing code and stuff. Okay, and I'm seeing head nodding, so let me make a note about
I
that.
won't reinvent the wheel.
Okay, let's see. If there's anything else that may have been.
There's the question of the steps and decks, but that was in the questions.
Oh, yeah, for,
There's a good question on here. Is if, since they're required for egress, do they have to have a separate permit? Or is it part of the mobile home permit? That might be this question. I don't know.
oh, no, I think what he was saying, that actually, this is an issue that we didn't talk about before, and that's an installation permit.
Oh, is that covered in that part?
Yeah, so the installation permit, and this is from, let's see.
That was attached to that we were talking about? Manufactured home installation permit?
Yeah, so the installation permit talks about, it asks about skirting. It doesn't say, is there, so this is for, the installation permit
Right.
is for every individual mobile home. It's not just for parks. And so it asks like type of skirting, not is there skirting? So that's why I think Bill is assuming that probably skirting is required. And on the installation permit for an individual mobile home, there's also a checkbox for
I see
steps
it.
and
I
decks,
see it.
yeah. But Bill's point that he raised in a separate email was that he recommends that the multifamily section of the zoning law, multifamily housing section, should mention the manufactured home installation permit to make sure that just as a reminder that there is this installation permit that is required. And also that it be mentioned somewhere in the general residential section of the zoning law. Probably in there's a section that's titled something like regulations for all districts. So it's not just for, a particular district, it's not just for multifamily housing, but it's for all districts, and could say that mobile homes, individual or home parks, need to do the town, what was it called? The manufactured home installation permit application. So are we comfortable with that, suggesting that that be added as a reminder to the zoning law for all, in the all residential section of the zoning law? We'll figure out specifically where that goes.
Yeah. You're definitely different, so.
Yeah, so that's different from an operating permit.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Michelle.
So are you still leaning, I think I'm getting confused. Are you still leaning towards not having a separate mobile home law, but just incorporating everything in the zoning law?
I think that's where this is heading, because what we've said basically with everything that there's a place that it could fit in the zoning law.
Okay.
And that there's a lot in the her current mobile home park law that it's not needed anymore at all. And so the planning board will have recommendations to the town board about certain tweaks, amendments, additions to the zoning law in various sections of the zoning law. So we'll have to put that together, which we might be able to do for our next meeting, although we had that one thing that we needed to look at the operating permit language. And what was the other thing?
The 100-year flood.
The 100-year floodplain, that's right, yeah. So either our next meeting or the meeting after that, we should be able to finalize our recommendations for the town board, I believe.
Weren't we, Michelle, weren't you saying something about like they were possibly thinking about a quarterly or once a year time to look at the zoning law? Remember you said that last meeting?
Well, I've suggested that to Mark, I think, that, rather than having it be an ongoing thing, that we, have a period of once a year looking at the zoning law and, making changes, like keeping a list throughout the year and then once a year saying, okay, now we're going to look at the zoning law and possibly make changes. But that's just my suggestion. The board hasn't voted on it or anything like that.
No, but we did have a board discussion and, I think we were in agreement that, that about a year is about right to take a year or 2 years or whatever, but, not before a year. That was when we were talking about the subdivision law, and that was adopted last fall. So we were thinking, well, maybe next fall if we want to make some administrative changes,
Yeah.
maybe we should do it then.
Yeah.
So I think the same would apply to, so.
So if we were looking at the timing, that perhaps at our June planning board meeting, we approve the final set of recommendations that we would pass on to the town board, that timing would be fine with you. Because you wouldn't really get to them until the fall anyway,
Yeah,
right?
oh, yeah, absolutely.
But we wouldn't miss a whole year's
Yeah,
cycle.
no,
Yeah.
we're not, no,
Okay.
no, we're not about to do it next month. or
Yeah,
anything.
okay.
So, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So that seems like that's our timeline. Is that good with you, Michelle?
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to do it sort of in the fall and early when we're doing budget stuff,
That's true.
it's just too busy then. So we were trying to think of a time of the year that we're not as busy. So probably wouldn't late summer, early fall be a good time for that? Mark?
Yeah, I mean, that is the start of budget conundrums or whatever.
When would you say, well, then maybe it's more, I mean, the zoning law was passed last March, right?
March 20th,
David?
So-
could be any time, yeah, so,
Like early summer would be better than before the fall.
Okay, so if we aim for our June meeting to get our stuff finalized for our recommendations, that seems like that would work.
yeah. I think the other thing is that did you want to say something, Michelle?
No, I was just agreeing with that. That seems like a good time.
Yeah, and the other thing is just for me personally, it's like, I think we'll recognize when, when there's like a body of changes that want to be made, we need to do this now, so I think.
Yeah, so this could be that body of changes.
Could be.
Are there any other town bodies that you're expecting are going to be suggesting changes in the zoning law for you all to consider?
In the zoning law.
Yeah.
The review board would be the other, could be the review board or even the ZBA.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we'll want to invite them to offer. I don't know.
But they're not working on something now.
No.
Okay.
No.
All right. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we will aim for then, is
Okay.
June to be done with this. Okay. All right. I think those were all the issues that were on the list that I had. Did anybody else have anything else? Brad, from your new perspective.
There's the report on.
Yeah, there was on the agenda, there was a report on agriculture summit on agrivoltaics, which Bill will do at the next meeting. And then it
So
was,
Bill attended that,
yes, Bill
Oh,
attended that, yes,
that's
and
great.
he was gonna summarize it, so.
great,
I think the agrivoltaics issue is one of the next things that's on the planning board's agenda to take up, but that's
Great.
up to Bill. And then, we're gonna work on setting the date for the May meeting, which, I have to pull up my schedule. Let's see what we're looking at here. Something tentatively,
Oh, on the,
don't we?
on the.
Yeah,
10th.
on the 28th. The 28th is when if we were meeting on Wednesdays, for some reason I have it there. Were we not meeting on Wednesdays? I forget now when a regular meeting is supposed to be. Anyway, so what about the week of May 26th? That would be the Monday. So either the Tuesday, the 27th or Wednesday, the 28th.
Tuesday would be better for me.
Tuesday better.
Both of them are fine with me.
Okay, Michelle, any preference?
No, either one's fine with me that month.
And Mark, do you have any idea if there's any town meetings that we should be avoiding? On May
That's-
27th?
that'd be the fourth Wednesday, right?
That would be the fourth Wednesday, or fourth Tuesday, I'm sorry.
Oh,
fourth
it's a Tuesday,
Yeah,
yeah, see, review board is second Tuesday. Nope, I think you're good.
okay, May 27th, so put that on your calendar tentatively until Bill weighs in.
Is he going? He was going to a show or
He was going to show, I don't know what show though. Any idea
We're
what's
going to have to grill him about what he saw.
what's that?
We have to
Oh.
grill him about what he saw. Oh,
That's right.
He has to recite a sonnet at least.
Okay, so I'll suggest May 27th to him. Okay, well, thank you very much.
Mhm.
Great, thank you guys.
And Brad, I hope you enjoyed your first official.
No, thank you for the welcome.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you. See ya.
Okay,
Hour, that's good.
I guess I'm gonna stop recording. See you, Michelle.
You. See you.
All right.
Till next month. Good night.